Hey everybody, Max here. This is part 3 in a video series of a solar charging station install in my garage, 200 watt solar charging station. In the first 2 videos we went through the plans and we went through the interior install of the charge controller and all of the batteries and wiring all together. This is part 3 where we're going to actually install the panels, put together a combiner box, run it through the wall and wire everything all together and make sure it actually works. Fingers crossed. This is my first time doing this. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just learning as I go, so that's what this video is. All right, in terms of where I'm gonna mount these, this is the southern facing roof of my detached garage, so the sun just comes up right over there, so it's the perfect spot for it. Where that ladder is, I think I'm gonna put the panels right there and low on the roof, and a couple of reasons. First of all of that right there is wisteria, and it grows and gets really bushy, but it stops right here. So this is a good spot for them, I think. Also, this is a 45-degree pitch roof. I don't want to go way up there and put the panels. That's going to be a pain in my butt. And when it snows and they get covered in snow, then I'd have to bust out this ladder and clear the snow off way up high. So I think right here is going to be a good spot, good ideal spot to mount those panels. So that's the plan for now. Getting the ladder all set up. And this is going to be the fun part. Here we go. So here's the 2 solar panels. These are from a company called WEIZE. I'll put a link in the description from where I got them. It was a couple $100, so 200 watts. So I thought price is right, and they had some good reviews. I'm going to give them a try. These are the mounting brackets that I bought. Again, link in the description for you, by a company called Worthy. And I figured the first thing I should probably do is actually do a trial installation of the brackets. And this way I have a really good feel for the distance between the mounting holes. I don't know if this is the right way to do it. This is just what I thought of to do, because now I took these measurements and I'm going to basically create a template on the roof based on these distances and then install the brackets first. So that's my plan for now. So I've pre-built the brackets as you saw earlier. So I removed this from the panels and now I'm getting ready to install it. So it's going to sit up on the roof just like this, and looks like there's a little weatherproofing seal here that'll go there. I'm going to pre-drill a hole in the roof and then put that in. The first one on the lower left is going to be where I start, and I'll just kind of build my measurements off of that and hope this goes well. See that? That's where the panel gets held right there. So this unscrews and it kind of clamps onto it, and the panel sits on this rail. It'll be a bit more clear here in a minute. All right, here we go. Here's the first bracket installed. Solar panel is going to sit like that. This is the lower left corner. I definitely noticed you're going to want to be mindful of where your shingles are if you're installing this on shingles. You don't want to be installing this over the top of 2 shingles. It's going to be wonky, so make sure wherever you put it, it's in a nice flat flush area. Also, use an extender on your drill so you can get in like that. It's a real pain in the butt if you don't have the extender, because the front of the drill kind of gets in the way of it. All right, here's the second one I installed. Now this one's a little different in that it is going to sit between the 2 solar panels. So the left one will be mounted here, the right one will be mounted here, and this little attachment just kind of sits down and tightens down on top of them both. So be mindful of whether you're installing it on the edge of your panel or whether it's going to be in between 2 panels, and use the right one accordingly. So now I'm going to install one more of these, but with this little mechanism reversed. Right over there. In my case, it's 27 inches between each one of these. So that's the measurement I'm using. Now I'm going to do the ones up top, and I don't know if you can tell, but my roof actually kind of veers off to the left this way, so it's not perfectly plumb. So the challenge I have is mounting the next one exactly vertically from where this one is. So that's why I'm using the level. So I've got the bubbles centered up, and then I'm going to measure. Now it's going to be 19 inches up from where these ones are to the next ones, and I'll mirror exactly the same thing, just up there 19 inches higher. Wish me luck. All right, I got the next one up installed, and like a doofus I didn't think about. I made sure that these were on flush surfaces, but then when you measure up, maybe the next one isn't. And sure enough, that one is not. So I used a couple of those extra weatherproofing plastic or rubber pieces to kind of be a shim to even it out so that it's level, because it was tilting that way due to straddling. So learn from my mistakes, pre-measure everything. I should have done that before I drilled this. I should have looked up there, but I didn't. So I'm just kind of, making do with what I got right now. Anyway, I'm gonna get the rest of them done. The nice thing about these is you've got some play here. You can loosen this screw, the rail can shift right or left, and then you can loosen this screw and this will shift right and left. So even if things aren't perfectly lined up, you've still got a little bit of play where you can tweak things, and I'm sure that'll come in handy as I actually get the panels up here. All right, there they are, all pretty and installed. Now, as tempting as it is for me to put those panels up right away, which I really want to do to make sure they fit, there's some preliminary work I need to do in terms of the wiring and the grounding of those panels that I want to get done before I actually get them up there. So that's what I'm going to do now. So here's what I wanted to do before actually getting these up there. It's going to be way easier down here. I've got the grounding wire, copper grounding wire, and I bought 2 offset terminal lugs. Show you what that looks like. Right there. Offset terminal lug. And the purpose of these, so I'm going to have them essentially both screwed into here, and then the grounding wire is going to be able to be clamped down or screwed down to these. And ultimately I'll run this grounding wire down into a copper rod in the ground. And that is, if these get struck by lightning, hopefully it doesn't fry my whole system here and goes down through this instead. So that's what I'm going to do right here. So you'll notice I decided to go ahead and put the ground terminators here. And the reason is it's going to be really hard. I was going to install them in here, but then I have to get a screwdriver in there, attach the ground wire. It's going to be a pain. It's not a lot of clearance here. So I put them here. I'm just going to put the ground wire straight through both of those and then run it down straight into a copper rod in the ground. So should keep things nice and easy. All right, I got them up there. You know what? This wasn't too hard. The whole thing was done with a single Allen wrench. My biggest lesson learned in this is when I first put the first panel up, which was this one, it wasn't squared up perfectly with the roof. And I didn't really realize that. I just assumed, oh, if I put these up here and tighten this down, it's going to be okay. But no, you have to really take a look at if the panel is squared up with the roof. Because when I put the second panel up, after the first one was a little off kilter, the second panel followed that pattern, and then it became really obvious that they were kind of going down at a slant on the roof. So make sure the first panel is really squared up, and then everything else is going to be squared up after that. If I were to do more panels, I probably would have snapped a chalk line all the way across the roof, so that was really clear. This was easy, just 2 panels. All right, let me show you something else. All right, next steps is to prepare to run wires from the panels down through this wall and bring them right into here. So I'm thinking of right here. I just used the stud finder. I got a stud right there, totally clear here. So I'm going to poke through here. I've never done this. I've never put a hole through a wall to the exterior of a building. So start with this really long one to do a pilot hole, and we'll see how this goes. All right, so the plan here is to bring the wires down from the panels, run them into a combiner box, which we'll get to in just a second. The combiner box is actually going to make them go in parallel. It's got the internal wiring for that. And then it's going to come out of the combiner box with 2 wires that go straight in here into the wall, feed through to the other side. This is an LB conduit body, which I'm just going to put right here. I've got a little hole attachment on the end of my drill here, which is just a bit bigger than that. Should work. That's gonna fit. Still think I need to widen the hole all the way through though. All right, now I got the big boy on there. We'll see how far through the wall this goes. Well, that was easy. Now it's gonna be time to mount the combiner box to the wall, right by the hole there. And this is where the two solar panels are gonna come down and plug straight into. Now this one, you can run up to 4 solar panels. You see that? 1, 2, and go here, and then 3, 4 would go there. They go up into these breakers, which have fuses. It's a fuse. It automatically runs them in parallel for you, and then here's your breaker, where I'm going to actually bring the positive and negative out, and that's what's going to feed down through these and run straight through there. This is for basically lightning strikes, and so it's a way for me to ground all of this. So I'm really going to be grounding a couple of things here. I'm going to run a ground from here down into the copper pole, which I'm going to drive here soon, and also we're going to run the ground straight from the panel frames into that same rod. So we'll be grounded all over the place. All right, let's mount this to the wall. Okay, combiner box is installed, holes drilled through the wall. Next I'm going to run the cables from the solar panels down to the combiner box. I've got some tools to make this possible, so here we go. All right, so here's the challenge. The 2 wires come off of the panels, and they're only about that long. I was thinking I could just, custom order some wires that are either like, 15 or 20 feet that already have the ends on them. But then I wouldn't have them, fit perfectly to the length that I need. So instead, I ordered a kit to help make these wires. So here's the tool kit I bought. I'll put a link in the description for you. It's by a company called BougeRV. Bouge. So bougie. And yeah, solar crimper. So it's actually got all of the materials that you need to go ahead and take your wires. I'm going to use the same 10 gauge wires as I use on the interior install. And put the solar ends on those, and they'll be cut to exact size cable that I need. I got to learn how to use this. All right, I got the 4 cables cut to length, and I'm about to feed them down through the conduit. And one thing I'm realizing is, by the time they get to the other end of the conduit, I'm not going to necessarily know which cable goes to what, right? And I want to make sure I keep 2 from one panel going to the right place and 2 from the other panel going to the right place. So I put duct tape on either end of both of these. And it's the same on the other end of those wires, so I'll know, these are the ones for panel 1, these are the ones for panel 2. All right, I just finished spending about 15 minutes trying to fish 4 of these through 1/2 inch steel conduit. I was only able to get 3. The 4th one is just no way, and I still have the copper grounding wire to run through this. So learn from my mistake. 1/2 inch isn't going to be enough if you're using these 10 gauges. So I'm going to go to the store and get some larger conduit. I'll probably hang on to this because I'm sure I'll need it again to some future project. So all's well, off to the store. Okay, I pre-fed the wires through this conduit. I went and bought the 3/4 inch, and that works much better. So the 3/4 inch works great for these 4 10 gauge wires and the copper ground wire. So let's put these on. I just did one as a trial, and so it's actually pretty easy. So you've got your female attachment, which has the smaller pin associated with it, and you've got the male attachment, which has the larger pin. It took me a minute to figure out which was which. It's not obvious. So let's attach the male now that we've already done the female there. So you just got to pre-run this little guy. Don't forget that, because you're gonna have to redo everything if you don't put that on first. Get that twisted up. And 10 gauge is a little bit big for these attachments, but it still works. See how that rests in there? And use the setting here that's the largest. This is definitely a little tricky without a person to help you. Crimp. It's on there. Pretty firm. Alright, so we feed that in. And then you slide that little baby down there. You can mostly do this hand tighten, but they do give you some tools to make it extra tight. So you just wrap that on there like that. Push this little baby on there like that. And twist and shout. Maybe not the shout part. The neighbors might think you're in trouble. Alright. So look at that. Positive attachment, or the male attachment on the negative. Female on the positive. And then I'll just get these two more done and we're going to be ready to hook them up. So I've got the cables and the ground wire all running into that conduit, and I just kind of did a straight shot down the wall here and attached the new solar endings on those. This was actually pretty easy. So ground wires here, it's going to go straight down, and then we're going to run another ground wire from here straight down. Now I need to take a couple wires from here, go right through the hole. Alright, the two panels are now wired into the MPPT charge controller, and I just turned it on, but the panels are still off at the breaker, so all we're seeing right here is it's just monitoring the two batteries that I've got that are still at 12.76 volts. Here's where you can see the panels. Currently it's 0 volts, 0 watts, so we're going to go throw the breaker and hope this works. Here we go. Hey, look, 16.1 volts, 4.5 watts. It's 3 o'clock right now in the winter here in the Pacific Northwest, and the sun is buried behind a bunch of clouds and fog. So that's what we're getting right now. But you know what? Successful test. You can see the panel right there. Cool. All right, I got to wire up the ground, so I'm going to turn everything off. I ordered this copper grounding rod. And it's 4 foot. There's also the 8 foot, but it sounds like I can get away with 4, so I'm going to use that. Try to drive it into the ground with this. Alright, so there's the top of the rod. Got this little device, attachment device, which I'll secure here. And I'm going to bring the two ground wires right down into this piece here. All right, look at that. Got the ground wires as neatly as I could run down the wall, down into the rod. So we're looking good here. I'm going to wait until tomorrow, and when the sun comes out, hopefully we'll get direct sunlight on those panels and we'll see how they do.
All right, the sun's just starting to come up over the trees there.
No direct sunlight on the panels yet, but let's go see what they're at. Looks like they're getting 12 watts right now. Still not much. It's okay though. We'll keep checking. Okay, now we got direct sunlight. Let's go check that out. All right, with direct sunlight this morning, getting 63 watts. Here you can see that the panels are pulling in 22.3 volts right now. And thanks for the charge controller for only sending 13.8 watts down to the batteries. That's one of the functions of the charge controller, is to regulate the voltage going to your batteries. It's also a nice little daily kilowatt hour tracker here, and total kilowatt hour. That's kind of useful. Okay, now it's all starting to come together. I went ahead and attached pretty much all of the rechargeable items that I want on this station, so pretty much all of these items will always be getting charged off the sun. I've got batteries for the house, which I use in just all kinds of stuff. You know, you got your smoke detectors and different types of lights that take batteries. I got the AAAs and the AA's. I got D's charging here. Could also charge C's in there. I've got all of my different video and regular camera batteries charging here. My flashlight battery charging here. I've got a ham radio charging. I've got my cell phone charging right off of the inverter's USB charger plug. Isn't that handy? So pretty cool, man. All right, well, that wraps it up for this video. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. Hopefully if you're doing a similar project, this was helpful watching me walk through all of this. Next steps for me is I'm going to probably put a shop light off of the DC fuse box here. So if we do have a long-term outage, I'll at least be able to have some light in here as I'm using the charging station. And depending on how much power this is able to generate, I might also add a couple more panels, like 200 more watts, right? So that would be helpful too. And it actually would be pretty easy to do that. Still 2 slots left on the combiner box up there, so it wouldn't be too bad. So anyway, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it, and I'll talk to you next time.